Hi, this is Shauna, and I want to welcome you to Living in This Space. Real talk, because hey, we're all just living in this space we call life, right? It's messy, it's hard, and sometimes it's the most joyous thing we can experience. I want you, my listener, to have a place where the conversation is real and honest. I hope we can spend this time together, validating, sharing, and experiencing all the feels together with whatever topic is on the agenda for the day. Let's dive in. Well, hello. We are going to do book reviews today, and I'm excited about this one because I love sharing when I read a good book with my friends. So how many of you are book readers or audio listeners out there? Don't you just love a good book? I grew up reading for pleasure, and I consumed just about everything I could get my hands on in the area of romance or mystery. My mother was an avid book reader, and she instilled that in me, and I'm so glad she did. It's also something that I tried to instill in my children when they were very young, and they grew up to be avid book readers themselves. I loved Stephen King when I was young and anything that was crime related. I mean, digging into that would just keep me enthralled for hours. But years ago, I started adding in marriage books, devotionals, and self-help. So today I'm excited to talk about some of my favorites in that arena. I'm very eclectic in what I read, but today we're going to lean into more, maybe I guess you could call it the self-help arena and the motivational arena. We'll be exploring a snippet of some of the books that have been pretty impactful for me over the last couple of years. Now, keep in mind, this is a very small selection. So in later episodes, we may do this again if you and I seem to enjoy this. I'm going to be giving you the title, the author, a general description of what the book is about, and then I'm going to read just a random snippet, probably something that I've highlighted that was meaningful for me in that particular book. So let's get started. I love a good devotional, and every year I buy something brand new. This year I went slightly off course, and I got a daily meditation book. It's not geared toward any one faith. It's just a daily meditation book. This one is called Journey to the Heart, and the author is Beattie. Y'all, I am so loving this book. It's a 1-year daily journey with each day being either a short story or meditation. Each personal story is a shared real-life event with the author from people she talked to while she was traveling across the western part of the United States. And each meditation was written in the places that she visited. One of the days that was especially meaningful to me was April 24th. It's titled, Change Your Perspective. And here's just a tiny bit of it. We often need to change our position so we can see things differently. We don't have to make a dramatic change. We just need to move around a little. Perhaps an unresolved issue is blocking our vision, blocking us from seeing the beauty that's there. Maybe it's a bit of anger or self-contempt that is interfering with our vision. Maybe the changes we need to make are minor, much less than we thought. Maybe we simply need to look at whatever we're viewing without fear, to change our mood, to see it through new eyes of love. Take a break, move around, learn to change your perspective. Maybe you don't need to change what you're looking at. You just need to change where you stand. Wow. That says a lot, doesn't it? I find that as Melody writes, if you could just look at something differently, in a different light or from a different position, it often will take on a whole new view where I personally can see a different side of something, or maybe I can look at it from a different perspective. I think that that is so important for us to grasp. So, if you decide to pick this up, she has just got so many wonderful stories and motivational type of meditations in this book. Okay, the next book, I'm telling you, I could spend days talking to you about. This book is titled Forgiving What You Can't Forget, and it is just as powerful as the title sounds. The author is Lysa Terkeurst, and this one is going to fall into the Christian woman's interest category. As you can guess, this one will be walking us through Lysa's experiences with forgiveness. One of the most impactful parts of this book for me are several chapters where Lysa talks about an exercise that her therapist had her do. Chapters 5, 6, and 7, and they're titled in order, Collecting the Dots, Connecting the Dots, and Correcting the Dots. And I'm going to read to you a snippet from chapter 5. We all have a story, and then we all have a story we tell ourselves. Revisiting the past can be scary, but if we want to fully heal, we need to dig into our stories to understand what's behind the curtain. Forgiveness isn't just about what's in front of us. Sometimes a bigger part of the journey is uncovering what is informing us from long ago. Woven throughout our experiences is a connecting thread that pulls the beliefs we formed from our past into the very present moments of today. So even though it's hard, lean in. I'll go first, Lysa writes. As I tell my story, look for the threads woven throughout my experiences that led to the beliefs that still echo into my life today. Wow, that's just powerful right there in itself. Lysa also explains what collecting, connecting, and correcting the dots of our life looks like. She says, it's not about getting it all right, but rather getting it all out. Okay, y'all, getting it all out. This isn't easy. This was incredibly impactful for me because in collecting, connecting, and correcting the dots of my life, I was able to recognize where some of the patterns of habit and thinking originated from. I tend to be a fixer and a people pleaser. I have deep-rooted fears of abandonment and a need for others to see me, to see the good side, and to keep the ugly side hidden. And I've uncovered where these patterns of thought and habit came from by collecting the dots of my life. I did this by sitting down and writing every memory that came to my mind. I tried to go back as far as I could in early childhood. Some things were just random memories that popped into my head, but other things I could clearly see a connection and a pattern. The next step is to correct if needed. Now, while some of the things I wrote down led to great habits in my adulthood and patterns that, were positive, others I could clearly see as destructive and in need of change. So like I said, I could go on and on about this book for days. If you haven't read it and you feel a need in your life to explore forgiveness that seems impossible to you, this is going to be a great choice. And I think that maybe later I might dig into this on a later episode, and we may just spend a whole episode talking about this book. Okay, let's move on. The next book, another powerful book, is titled The Dance of Anger. It's written by Harriet Lerner, Ph.D. Now, she's written a whole series of books that deal with different emotional feelings, and they're all titled The Dance of, and then whatever topic she's writing about. This was a powerful book for me, and it was recommended by my counselor. Anything that she's recommended to me, I've just hopped right on Amazon and bought. So I had a season, y'all, where I was angry all the time, just all the time. And some of that anger, I knew where it was coming from. I could clearly identify it, but there was a whole nother level of anger that I couldn't grasp where it was coming from. All I knew was I was mad. And I would go into my counseling session and I'd go, I don't even know why I'm mad. I'm just angry. I'm just angry. I'm so angry. Well, this book really helped me. And I'm hoping if you're in this season or struggling with this, it can help you too, to maybe define the anger that you're feeling and hopefully give you some skills to navigate why you're feeling that way. So here's just a snippet of chapter 1 called The Challenge of Anger. How does one make use of this book? very slowly. No matter how crazy or self-defeating our current behavior appears to be, it exists for a reason and may serve as a positive and protective function for ourselves and others. If we want to change, it's important to do so slowly so that we have the opportunity to observe and test the impact of one small but significant change on a relationship system. If we get ambitious and try to change too much too fast, we may not change at all. Instead, we may stir up so much anxiety and emotional intensity within ourselves and others as to eventually reinstate old patterns and behaviors. Or we may end up hastily cutting off from an important relationship, which is not necessarily a good solution. In order to use our anger as a tool for changing relationships, we will be learning to develop and sharpen our skills in 4 areas. Number 1, we can learn to tune in to the true source of our anger and clarify where we stand. Number 2, we can learn communication skills. That's a big one, y'all. Number 3, we can learn to observe and interrupt non-productive patterns of interaction. Okay, I'm going to interject here. This was huge for me. This one skill was something I desperately needed to learn because I could go down a rabbit hole in talking to someone else for hours. And learning this skill to interrupt a very non-productive pattern of interaction was key for me. Okay, number 4, we can learn to anticipate and deal with counter moves or change back reactions from others. You can dig into that if you get this book. That was a new one for me to learn. But there's so much good stuff here. So much good stuff. When I looked this book up on Amazon, I saw she had other topics that I felt sure I was going to need to dig into. So I bought probably 6 or 7 of her books. They're all sitting on my shelf, and I've dug into every single one of them. So I highly recommend this author in full if you see other topics by her that interest you. Okay, these next 2 books I feel are a must for my lady listeners. The first is 13 Things Mentally Strong Women Don't Do by Amy Morin. On the dedication page, she writes, "To all the women who strive to become a little stronger today than they were yesterday." I love that. That's my wish for you as well. I just love that she said that. Amy uses story examples and her own wisdom to show us how to be stronger in our walk as women in this book. She also has another book called 13 Things Mentally Strong People Don't Do. I think this one is a little more gender neutral, but this book that I'm talking about today is geared for women. It is so full of great information. And I'll be honest with you, I really struggled to find one thing I wanted to read to you out of this book because there's so much good stuff here. But here's a small part of chapter 9 titled, "They Don't Let Others Limit Their Potential." Pay attention to your self-talk. Regardless of how you develop beliefs about yourself that limit your potential, the conversations you have with yourself either reinforce or refute those beliefs. You likely don't pay much attention to your thinking patterns. However, after all, who thinks about thinking? Start paying attention to your self-talk. You might even keep a journal to really track your inner dialogue. You'll likely notice some clear patterns in the way you think. Identifying the unhealthy thinking patterns you developed is the first step in changing the way you think. Psychologists refer to maladaptive and irrational thoughts as cognitive distortions. And while there are many types of cognitive distortions, here are the thinking errors that are most likely to allow others to limit your potential. 1. All or nothing thinking. 2. Overgeneralizing. 3. Filtering out the positive. And I'm assuming she means only focusing on the negative here. 4. Mind reading. Oh my gosh, how often do we do that? How often do we assume we know what people are thinking? 5. Catastrophizing. Y'all, I do that a lot. 6, fortune telling. That's another one of my skills, to predict the future. I think I know what's going to happen. And then number 7 is personalization. She goes on to write, becoming aware of your cognitive distortions can help you think more realistically. Thinking realistically can empower you to become your best, despite times when others may try to limit your potential. Okay, I'm going to reinforce again, this book is so worth diving into, especially if you are struggling to feel empowered in your daily walk as a woman. If that's you, I want you to hop on your computer and order this book off Amazon or go to your local bookstore and get it. All right, let's move on to the next one. Here's another one. Just tick this one off as one you want to order too. You Are a Badass by Jen Sincero. Okay, this one is a wow, why didn't I read this sooner kind of book. I have so much to say about this one, and there's just not enough time. So we may dig into this one too on a later episode. There is so much packed into this one book that I think you would enjoy. And I couldn't choose when I looked at this one what to read to you. So I chose several things from several chapters in this book. This first bit is from her introduction, and then I'm going to be skipping around after that. When describing what this book is and isn't about, she writes, it's about having the cojones to show up as the brightest, happiest, badassest version of yourself, whatever that looks like to you. The good news is, in order to do this, all you need to do is make one simple shift. You need to go from wanting to change your life to deciding to change your life. She goes on to write, you'll have to believe in things you can't see, as well as some things that you have full-on proof are impossible. You're going to have to push past your fears, fail over and over again, and make a habit of doing things you're not comfy doing. You're going to have to let go of old, limiting beliefs, and you're going to have to cling to your decision to create the life you desire like your life depends on it. Jen then goes on to quote the poet Anais Nin. And the day came when the risk to remain tight in a bud was more painful than the risk it took to blossom. I love that quote. My personal thoughts are that we tell ourselves too many stories. I talked about this on an earlier episode. Jen talks about this. She talks about becoming aware of what your stories are in chapter 17, and it's titled, It's So Easy Once You Figure Out It Isn't Hard. Oh my gosh, don't you love that title? Here's a snippet from this chapter. We call these stories because they're just that. They're not the truth. They can be rewritten. You are the author of your own life, not your parents, not society, not your partner, not your friends, not the bullies who called you Fatzilla in junior high. And the sooner you decide to write yourself a better script, the sooner you get to live a more awesome life. Before you can let go of your stories, get clear on what they are. Listen to what you say and what you think about, and start busting yourself in your own lies. We get so used to and so identify with our broken records that we don't even notice they exist or that they're not even real. And yet, we fight to the death to uphold their non-truths. Listen especially for sentences that begin with, I always, I never, I can't, I should, I suck at, I wish, I want, as opposed to, I will and I am. I don't have, or this one, I say this a lot, one day, and then I'm trying to. Start paying attention. What are your favorite self-sabotaging stories? What do you hear yourself think and say over and over again that's become who you are, or rather who you think you are? Bust yourself in your own tired, old, broken records right now so that you can set about rewriting your stories and create the kind of life you love. Wow. I mean, really? Wow. Y'all, that is so powerful, isn't it? Those last two books, I think are just, if I could pick any of these for you as women to feel more empowered after reading, those last two I think would be key. But all of the ones I've talked to today, I feel like have so much value for some of us. There's so much powerful stuff here, sweet friends. I hope you have enjoyed this topic of reviewing some of the books that I personally find impactful. And if you're interested in more episodes like this, please let me know. In addition to having guest speakers on my show and sharing some things from my personal journey, I hope that we can weave into our time together things like this in the future. I love listening to other people talk about books they've read, so I hope this is something that you've enjoyed. Until next time, my sweet friends. Hey, thanks for listening. Don't forget to hit follow wherever you get your podcast. And until next time, I hope you live in your space well, my friends.